So here at Melbourne, the conference, of course, started out with a grim moment, and perhaps one way to summarize it would be that reminder that none of us ever know what our day is going to be and what's going to happen to us. So it was certainly a reminder for all of us of not just some of the important people in our field, but a reminder of our humanity and our finiteness and how we make sure each day matters. In terms of this conference, I think there are a couple of themes that are emerging. In terms of the issues around treatment, probably the biggest themes here are summarized by the fact that the International Antiviral Society issued its updated guidelines on its recommendations. And we now have consensus pretty much in all of the major guidelines that there are 10 great regimens to choose from. And how we choose amongst those 10 remains really the question for clinicians. How do we say all 10 of these are really good, but which is the one that's right for each person? So individualizing from each of these 10 choices is great. But for the first time, the guidelines this time now have listed a 2-drug regimen for the first time. There's been a lot of research for a long time of alternatives to 3 drugs, and now one of the alternatives is a 2-drug regimen of a protease inhibitor along with a single nucleoside. What's interesting about that body of research is that we have a lot of examples of how poorly people have done on average on 2-drug regimens as initial therapy. We at this conference saw yet another example of a disappointment of a great protease inhibitor along with the entry inhibitor Maraviroc. A lot of data that we've seen in which a protease inhibitor was combined with one other drug having a disappointing outcome. But at this meeting, we hear the announcement that the protease inhibitor plus a single nucleoside, 3TC, has now entered the guidelines to allow us to engage on when is that the right regimen? When do we need 2 drugs? When do we need 3? Do we start with 3 and decrease to 2 as some research does? Do we stay on 3? Is it the number of medicines or is it the number of pills? How do we come up with the right way to put this together? So still lots of discussion, lots of debate, and lots of reasons why all the research that we're doing is still necessary to answer these questions. We still have some challenges to face to make sense of our choices. In terms of people who are already doing well on therapy, what we saw at this meeting is mostly reassurance that the safety data keep coming in, that what we're doing and the tools we have are safe. We're seeing very few new issues of long-term toxicities. It's not that long ago that we started to have those surprises of bad news after year 3, 4, and 5 of new toxicities. We're still not seeing it. It's good news, it's reassuring news, and our research is actually supportive of, yes, we've got the right tools to use right now for therapy. If we then translate that into the next step, we've known for years that people on suppressive antivirals are also less infectious to partners. At this meeting, there's been more discussion not only about treatment as prevention, but about pre-exposure prophylaxis and its role in prevention. At this meeting, when we got here, we had already had an announcement by the US CDC and by the WHO saying that PrEP has come into its own now, that PrEP is an important tool. And probably the biggest reasons are the fact that we are still seeing tens of thousands of new infections each year in the US alone, and perhaps even increases in mostly young gay men, despite what we've done in terms of offering great treatment to people who are positive. And so the role for taking a medication like tenofovir FTC, if you're negative, to stay negative, is an idea that more and more groups are coalescing around, including even Tony Fauci himself, saying this is an idea that's important, not just interesting data, but important data. Because we still don't have a vaccine. We saw another summary of where vaccine research is, and it's still looking for something promising. We saw still more mostly disappointing news around cure. So we don't have a cure to look forward to yet. There's still only one person who's been cured. We don't have a vaccine yet that's been proven, but we've got profound progress in treatment, profound data of how good treatment is for keeping people well and for controlling and slowing down this epidemic. We've seen news of how urgent that is from the plenary that started this conference, in which in South Africa, in women in their 20s, In one study that was presented from South Africa, nearly half of the young women are HIV positive in their mid-20s. So we have a lot of work to do to contain this epidemic now, over 3 decades into it. So this conference was energizing, I think, to remind us that in our lifespans, we need to do more. We have the tools to do more.